Hey guys, this is a 1985 Ford Thunderbird V8. This is basically a video on the checking the charging system on this vehicle. I had been having an issue where I would start this car and drive somewhere, and then when I come out and try to restart it, it wouldn't start, and I would have to wait a few hours before I could start this guy back up, or I would have to get a jump. Now, what I found out is the charging system is comprised of three things. That's your battery, your alternator, and your voltage regulator. Now, I would strongly suggest that you go to a place and get your battery checked, like at Advanced Auto or Napa or something like that, a place where, they would do it, for you for free. I would strongly suggest that. Generally, your voltage should always be probably around 12.5, 12.6 volts, around that area. And I would also suggest as well to get your alternator checked as well. Situation with my vehicle is the battery checked out good. It just needed to be charged, so they charged it. The alternator also checked out good. So I was wondering what was the problem. Well, what I done was I replaced the voltage regulator just to be on the safe side. I mean, just best to get a new one, that way you're starting off with something that is new and it works. Voltage regulator is, I don't know if you see those 4 wires right there, but they're connected to your voltage regulator. I would just, they're only about $10-12. I would just suggest getting a new one. Also, when you're installing the voltage regulator, try to make sure that you have a good ground. In other words, try to sand those area, the area where the voltage regulator attaches to the body of your car. This is an externally mounted voltage regulator on this vehicle. So, just kind of just sand that area down a little bit. Try to make a good ground before you put it back on, in my situation, that wasn't the problem though. What I ended up finding out is that the wiring that was connected to from the voltage regulator, those wires right there, well, they're labeled IASF on this vehicle. The ignition, which is always hot, which is that green wire. The A going to the alternator. The S also going to the alternator, and the F, which is the field wire. Now that is the wire that I had to make. I actually had to strip it because it was in such bad shape. And if you have a connector, now Ford makes these connectors like this, I would strongly suggest to actually remove the wires from this connector to inspect them, because it was so corroded inside, and there was so much grime and dirt in here, and it's really hard to see it, to really inspect those wires while they're actually still in here. So you need to take them out, kind of clean them up, inspect them, and just reattach them back to your voltage regulator. Or you could try to clean this and reinstall it back. I chose to have them connected like this. But you really need to check the wire that you really need to check is the wire that goes from your alternator to your battery, which is labeled BAT, B-A-T, and it tends to have like this red covering right here. This wire is critical because this is the wire, this is the output of the alternator. It charges, its job is to charge your battery. So you really need to follow this wire all the way to where it ends. So it goes here, and then it just, you just follow that particular wire and make sure, check the condition of that wire, a visual check. Then you also need to check for continuity, take your voltmeter, your multimeter, put one end on the end of that wire and the other end on the other end on this end, and then check for continuity for any breaks in the wire. You can't see electricity, you have to test for it. So once you test that and see if there's continuity or resistance, just make sure that you have that wire is in good condition. If you have to, or you might have to replace some fusible links if you have an issue. But it can only be those three things. It can only be the voltage regulator, your alternator, or your battery. And if you get the battery and the alternator checked and they turn out good, then it can only be the wiring or your voltage regulator. In my situation, I would also strongly suggest checking the mounting bracket. I don't know if you can see this or not, but see my mounting bracket was broken, and it had been broken for a while, and this could have also been an issue as to why I was having that issue. Basically, I ended up having to get it rewelded back. And once I done that, and I also checked those wires, everything ended up working the way it's supposed to. So basically, when this is the charging system. So when you start your car, it uses the battery power. Then what happens is your alternator is supposed to start charging your battery. If it's not doing that, then those are things to check for. So I hope this helps anybody that has that particular problem. And also make sure that your belt, your alternator belt is, that is nice and tight as well.